Sup everybody, just gonna do a stupid one. Bit of a break, take a break from the real thing. I'm doing a proper version, a boring version of how we got the Bible for mainstream audiences. Not the fun stuff that I'm doing now. That light's causing trouble. Looks like a TV screen flickering in the background. We're going to look at the greatest scientist on planet Earth, Kent Hovind himself. Right, so everybody's been debunking his creation scientific creation model, which is real as the flat earth model. I grew up on his teachings, so I was raised under his guidance, his teachings. His word was gospel. Then I found out he was a liar, a compulsive liar. He now has a compend a la David. I was going to say David Icke. David Duke? No, that's KKK. David Koresh. Vernon Howell. Vernon Howell himself. Yeah, so please don't get your compound followers to drink the Kool-Aid there, Kent. So, let's go on a funny journey. His version, well, Gail's. Yeah, tell the truth. It's Gail's version of how we got the Bible, regurgitated by the greatest scientist on earth, Kent Hovind himself. Right.
Well, why not other versions? Well, I've been a Christian since 1969. I was raised all kinds of different churches, and after I got saved, my parents started giving me just about every kind of Bible version there was, and I have a collection of quite a few different Bible versions. I'm not afraid of them. But let me give you a quick history of the different Bible versions, and maybe this will put it in perspective.
This is like giving the history of Muppets? I don't know.
I have slowly, over 30-some years, come to the position of the King James. Now, I don't fight Christians that use other versions. Use whatever you want, okay? But I think if you're really going to be a Bible student, you're going to have to get a King James. Here's the story. The New Testament books were written shortly after the time of Christ.
No. There were pages. Bits of. Right? Don't pick every mistake he makes. You'll be here all night. Okay, sorry.
They had to make copies. It takes about 10 months to write out a copy of the Bible.
They didn't have copies of the Bible. There was no Bible in existence. They had bits of the book of John, bits of the book of Matthew. Just, oh my God, why did I do this? Bits of. They didn't have an actual Bible till 330 AD. After the Council of Nicaea, Kent. Please do research, not just read Gail's books and regurgitate her garbage. Thanks, Kent.
So they had to write out the whole copy of the Bible by hand. They had no...
Nobody ever wrote the whole Bible by hand because it didn't exist in complete form. I said that already.
No Gazette there, no printing press, no, Gutenberg hadn't been born yet. So it took a long time to make a copy of the Bible. They make their copies, they had either both books and scrolls, both were in use all through Scripture. And they make a copy and then they check it very carefully. If they find a mistake, you're going to burn it.
Okay, now he's just confused himself. With the, so let's say Aramaic, bits of Aramaic, Book of John. These are all the originals that have been lost. He's got them confused with the scriptorians after 1008 AD, which is the oldest copy we have, which is right here. So the Aleppo Codex, when they started copying these out by hand, and they had gold lettering and they look beautiful. Oh my God, it's a beautiful artwork. And if I made a mistake, they would rip these expensive pages up. And of course, this is when they started the vowel pointings and all the decorations above the letters, that sort of stuff. So he's confused a technique that is invented 1,000 years in the future. Like I said, time travel. So somebody went from 1008 AD back to the 1st century and taught them how to write the Hebrew scriptures, even though they were writing Greek scriptures in the New Testament. Okay, I'm with you, Kent. Clear as mud, buddy.
So they were very careful to get it right. They had a checking system that was really pretty goof-proof.
Yeah, in the scriptoriums, okay. You're not goof-proof, mate.
They made all these copies and they spread out around the world because this was a time of great persecution. Christians are getting persecuted, so they spread out to different countries and they bring their copies of Bibles with them.
Wrong. They brought whatever they had, the Book of John. And of course, as we now know, the Syriac language discoveries, early bits of that were smuggled or whatever, carted to Syria, something like that. Anyway, back to fantasy.
So you got somebody in India who's copying the Bible and somebody in France who's copying the Bible. And
hey Kent, France didn't exist. It was called Call. Have you read Asterix lately, buddy? Oh God. Oh God. See, I love it. That's why I call this history. This is Gail Riplinger's unique version of history. Like the Napoleon lived in the 2nd century AD here. Sorry. Carry on, kid. I know you know nothing, but have a go. I mean, it's Gail's stuff you're regurgitating.
pretty soon the copy wears out. The scrolls that are in active use are not going to last more than maybe 2.
Didn't have scrolls. The Hebrews had scrolls, which they hid in clay pots. The Greeks had manuscripts. No, he doesn't do any research. Okay, sorry, this is Gale stuff. Carry on.
100 years. Let's be generous here. Let's say a book lasts 200 years if you use it every day.
It wouldn't be used like in a church. Okay, so the Jews read out the scrolls, right? I understand that. But he's got a complete New Testament ready to go in some sort of Jewish scroll rolled up on those roller things. What the oh my God. I haven't had to pull out the Wikipedia yet, but I don't think I'll have to.
So they use these scrolls or Bibles and they're copying from it every day. At the end of the day, they roll it up and they put it away.
Roll what up? Oh,
Within 200 years, it's worn out. It's rags. You throw it away.
God.
But it doesn't matter because by then you have, 50 copies you've made off of this.
By the way, just want to bring in a fact here because I have to bring facts into this stuff. When Jesus read the scroll in the temple, it would have been in the old form of, or it's Aramaic, isn't it? Yeah. So by the time Jesus came to earth, they'd no longer had the Hebrew language that was revised by the scriptorians. These dudes did that. So he would have been reading Aramaic in the scrolls. Imagine finding those things. Like, we got the great Isaiah scroll, so it would have been like that, but it's rolled up. Okay, because they read it that way. Yeah, okay, I get you. I'm actually learning. Wow. Oh, they would be, yeah, wow. I should make one, yeah.
Thing, or maybe 100 copies. This goes on, several generations, and now you're on the 4th or 5th or 6th generation from the original.
Of which there's no copies in existence, and there's very few for the next 200 years, but carry on.
And now you have thousands of exact copies of the original, which is...
Thousands. After 2,000 years, we now have 5,500 copies of the Greek. 10,000 of the Latina. Oh, I can't remember the word. The early Latin. Latinus Voltina. Latina. I've forgotten. Don't have to go to Wiki. Whatever. We don't know. They were burnt. They were destroyed. There's no evidence for anything that he's...
Long gone. It's been thrown away, years and years ago.
More likely it was burnt in the Colosseums along with the Christians, if you want to go dramatic.
Okay. About the early 1500s, they decided to put the Bible into English.
Wow, he just skipped a 1300 years of Bible history in one sentence. So, the Latin, Old Latin Bible was around, and then 380 I should say, Jerome translated the Old Latin into the Vulgate Latin, the Vulgar, or Common Language Latin. Then Erasmus got a hold of manuscripts of the Vulgate and created a Greek New Testament in 1502, first edition 1502, third edition 1512. All New Testament, the Old Testament, was in scriptorians. These big, huge, this is tiny compared to the real thing. These big, huge, with the Hebrew lettering and decorations and all that design stuff. That's going on, and it's all copied word for word in the Hebrew language, and if there was a mistake, they'd rip it up, said that. So, you've skipped 1500 years. Okay, breathe.
And so Erasmus and Luther and Tyndale and...
Whoa! Dude! Erasmus did 4 translations of the Greek. The other dude... Stephanus did a translation of the Greek. Then Luther translated that into German. Tyndale translated that into Old English, the Geneva Old English. Then the King James, 100 years, the language had evolved, and so it's the Shakespearean English by this time. So he's just like lumped 100 years of history in one sentence. Oh my gosh.
The Geneva Bible and all this was made in the early 1500s, and throughout the 1500s, they're making copies of the Bible, they're translating it to English.
They weren't making copies of the Bible though. That's another thing, Kent. If you sit down, there's actually movies being made about how Luther smuggled his German Bible, because if the Catholic Church found these copies, they would execute the person that they found them with. It's a blood-filled story, Kent, that you're just brushing aside because the King James conspiracy is far more important than people being burnt at the stake for the sake of the Bible.
They went around and gathered up old scrolls that they could find and copied.
They didn't have scrolls, dickface. They had manuscripts. I'm sorry.
Of the Bible, and they found about 5,000 copies of...
Wrong! Oh my God. The 1560 Geneva, 1611 King James, these manuscripts weren't dug up until the 1950s. So that's 1611, 1711, 1811, 1911, 300 years in the future. So this is what I call gistery. So the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1611 and reburied and then found 300 years later, or they were sent back in a time machine. I don't know how this works in reality.
Scripture from countries all over the world.
Well, not that you know anything, but there was 5,500 Greek, there was 10,000 Latin, there was the Syriac, the Coptic is Syriac Baharic, the Peshitta, the Samaritan Pentateuch, and on and on and on and on. But Again, these weren't found yet for a few more years, maybe 100 or two. All right, breathe.
This group of manuscripts became known as the Textus Receptus.
Wrong. Textus Receptus is what Erasmus did in 1502. He put together all the evidence he had from the manuscripts he could find, which was 1 AP, 2 AP, 3 AP, blah, 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 blah. I've done the list a million times. 1817. And that is the Textus Receptus, what Erasmus came up with. And you can buy the first edition for about 25 grand if you want to look at it. But I got a PDF, a PhD file of it. Yeah, I got a PDF file of it. It's 1.9 gigabytes. But it's beautiful. It really is beautiful. Again, from an artistic point of view, wow.
Received text. They looked at all these scrolls and could find no differences except
they didn't have them for another 300 years. Sheepus.
They looked at all these scrolls and could find no differences except the spelling of people's names and the spelling of cities, you know, like Peter and Pedro and stuff like that. So they made English translations, and finally the King James in 1611 was made.
Man, what a hodgepodge of nonsense. All right, don't worry about it. So things got travelled back 300 years and forward 300 years on the time machine. Again, I ask, who invented this time machine? Was it Galileo? Was it Constantine the Great who supposedly wrote these manuscripts 300 years after he was dead? I'm not sure. Please explain.
From these texts, what's called the majority text.
The majority text is nothing to do with the Textus Receptus. It's a different field of study. You need a different type of expertise. But never mind. Reality? What the hell's that?
Meanwhile,
so here we go into all the satanic Satan Lucifer conspiracy theories with a meanwhile.
down in Egypt,
which is evil.
there was a group of folks called the Alexandrians.
The Alexandrians must have been evil.
Down in Alexandria, Egypt, which was at that time a major city. A major library was there, which later burned.
That's a shame. That's a fact. He just stated a fact. Okay.
But a major city in Alexandria, Egypt. There was a cult down there called the...
A cult. So Oregon and Augustine, Eusebius of Caesarea, Polycarp, no, I'm getting them mixed up. These people who studied Bibles were, for some unknown reason now, part of a cult that didn't exist for another 300 years. Okay, I'll do that.
Alexandrians. They're sort of like Jehovah's Witnesses. They wanted everybody to think they were Christian, but they believed a lot of strange things.
There was one of them, Oregon, and this was taken care of at the Council of Nicaea. If you know anything about history of anything, Kent, the debate over whether Jesus was God, half God, fully male, fully man, that was just a theological debate that was happening, and it was sorted. So the dude that was on the wrong side of the fence got labeled as a heretic. But the conspiracy theory here is that that guy, if it's Oregon, it must have been Oregon, I think, as far as I know, the conspiracy theory is that these people in this debate were the ones that wrote the manuscripts that were dug up in the 1950s. Time travel. TARDIS. Doctor Who's got... Oh, Doctor Who, you've got so much to answer for. You're meddling in our timelines. You wait till I get Doc Brown on your ass.
So they made their own version of the Bible.
Okay, that's just wrong in so many ways. So we have the Bible. This is the satanic Bible, the Greek New Testament, the Novum, big word, Novum Testamente Graece, which comes from all these papyruses and manuscripts that were discovered Tregellis, so from about 1700s, 1800s, 1900s, 1950s, 47 was the big one, Dead Sea Scrolls, 1950s, papyrus. Somehow the earlier copies that have been dug up from under the ground and buried in jars that were hit by shepherds throwing rocks at things, somehow they're all evil? They're all part of a cult? Oh, God. Oh, no.
They left out a lot of verses they didn't like.
Again, the 64,000 missing words are missing because they were never there in the originals. When I say originals, I mean whatever's in here from 150 AD to 330 AD to however the earliest copy of what bit of Luke that they found in a coffee jar somewhere. How do you get history backwards? Wow. Gale.
Changed little things here and there. It was a careful counterfeit, but a counterfeit nonetheless.
It's the actual Bible. And by the way, I know you don't pay taxes. I know you went to prison for 10 years for not paying taxes. I know you're a sovereign citizen. I know you're an anti-vaxxer. But with all your knowledge, this is the actual Bible. What Erasmus used, which went into the King James, was 11th, 12th century manuscripts which had added words added by monks or priests or popes or whatever. I feel like this verse should have these words in it today. And if you go back to the early manuscripts, 11th, 12th century, carry on.
They have this Alexandrian Bible, and some copies were made, and the primary guy in this cult was a guy named Origen, who
Thanks for getting his name wrong.
lived about 240 AD.
I'll give him that. 180 AD.
In 350 AD,
So, 200 years after he was dead, the Codex Sinaiticus and this Codex Vaticanus did what? I know what he's going to say.
In 350 AD, 2 copies of the Alexandrian Bible were made, and those copies are called the Sinaiticus because it was found in the Sinai desert in a monastery, and Vaticanus because it was found in the Vatican Library in the basement, I believe. Those 2 copies from 350 AD are still around today.
Really? Wow, I thought they would have floated back to heaven myself.
The Latin Vulgate was made from those manuscripts.
Nobody. Okay. We don't know. Nobody knows. This book was in the Vatican Library the whole time, but whether they knew about it before Tregellis or whoever discovered it in the Vatican Library, whether Jerome used it for his translation, nobody's going to know. There's no footnotes, source material marked down. I used the Vaticanus for that. Facts don't belong here. Thank you.
Scripts in 380 AD that was translated to Latin.
Jerome actually used the old Latin manuscripts, and if he had access to the Codex Vaticanus, he would have used that as well, but who knows?
And in 1582, the Catholic Church ordered the translation of the Latin Vulgate into English, and that's where the Douay Confraternity and the Douay Rheims version come in. The Douay versions were made from the Latin, which was a good translation of the wrong manuscript. They're translating the Alexandrian.
So in 1582, they translated the Latin Vulgate, Jerome's Latin Vulgate, into English using stuff that was dug up in 1950, 1580, 1680, 1780, 1880, 1980. So nearly 400 years in the future. Don't. Help me, please. There is no way out of here. It'll be dark soon. There is no way out of here.
So they got the bad manuscript, the corrupt, cult manuscript, being translated into English, which became the official Catholic version in use today.
Oh, that's what Gale invented that. Get it right. Gale invented that conspiracy theory. You're regurgitating her conspiracy theory. That's how she muddles up the Latin Vulgate with all the other weird conspiracies. Okay. Alright.
Douay version of the Bible. Two guys named Westcott and Hort came along in 1875.
Wow. The two most evil men on the planet, because they dared to update Erasmus's Novum Testamente Grace. Did I get that right? Yep, Novum Testamente Grace. The 1881 edition is so evil that it's going to end up in the lake of fire in the river Styx. Yeah.
And they took these Alexandrian manuscripts, of which I think about 15 or 17 of them were found, I don't know.
Bloody hell. So 7 manuscripts were used in the translation of the King James Bible. It's 1881, so there's still no Dead Sea Scrolls, there's still no papyrus, still no Codex Leningradensis, blah blah blah. And so there's thousands of manuscripts that they're using, hundreds, I'd say hundreds, to be more accurate, hundreds that Westcott and Hort are using as they're finding more and more, and you're going to abuse these two guys that spent their whole entire life creating the grandfather of this book, which is what all modern Bibles come from, and this one for the Old Testament.
And they said, these are old manuscripts.
Correct.
Therefore, they're better.
Correct.
Well, now, hold on a minute. Yes, they're older, but that doesn't mean they're better. They're old.
They are better because they would have been closer to the actual Aramaic originals. Do you know how history works?
Older because they're worse. The people didn't use them. They didn't wear them out. But they made a modern Greek version of the Bible from this ancient one. They, put it on new paper, new ink, and made a new Greek edition in 1875. This was then
1881, but who's splitting hairs?
Translated into English, at least the New Testament in Greek. And so the English translations of the of the Westcott and Hort text include the revised version done in
1881. Yep, I agree with that.
1881, the American Standard Version done in 1901, the Revised Standard in 1946, and the New World Translation Jehovah's Witness Bible made in 1950. The New American Standard Bible made in 1960.
So the New American Standard Good News Amplified Living NIV comes from the 23rd edition of this, written by Kurt Aland Eberhard Nestle. You're gonna do a King James mistake. Erwin Nestle, Kurt Allen, Matthew Black, Carlo Martini, Bruce Metzger, Alan Whitgren. So somehow Cardinal Martini and Kurt Aland and other people travelled back to 1875 to talk with Westcott and Hort. Right, okay.
The Good News Bible, the
Time travel. Why can all these people travel back and forwards in time and there's no evidence of where the time machine is? This is a conspiracy that has to be solved.
Amplified Bible, the Living Bible, and the NIV. All of those are good translations of the wrong manuscript.
So then you're saying, I'll get the big guns out for this, it's the same authors anyway, you're saying that the lifetime work of Kurt Aland, Matthew Blake, Carlo Martini, Bruce Metzger and Alan Whitgren, plus all the people that actually found the manuscripts, was a complete waste of time, that they somehow were connected to some non-existent cult way back in Egypt in the 3rd century. Time travel? TARDIS? Is this TARDIS or is this DeLorean? We're going to have to make a list. Which time travel goes with TARDIS and which time travel goes with DeLorean?
So I don't fault the translators. I think they're probably sincere men, probably intelligent men.
Probably intelligent men. The people that put this together, some of them speak 7 languages. The dude, one of the presidents of the United States, could write Latin with his left hand and Greek with his right. He was that brilliant. Wow, imagine if Trump had that brain. He'd explode. Shh.
But they're translating the wrong book. They need to get the right Bible. The first mention of Alexandria is in Acts chapter 9 when they were disputing with Stephen, arguing with the Christians.
Wow. So therefore, because they were disputing with the Cyrenians and Alexandrians, it means that they're evil. Wow, I'm getting tired.
And we still got the same thing today with these different versions of the Bible arguing with the real Bible. Okay, my Jehovah's Witness Bible on my shelf will probably never get worn out. It doesn't mean it's better, it just means I'm not going to use it. Okay, I have one, I have a Mormon Bible, I'm not going to use it. So, James, I recommend...
What language was the Mormon Bible translated, Kent?
You get the book New Age Bible Versions, you can order...
Oh, there we go. The Holy Grail, New Age Bible Versions. Proof that all his source material, his only source material, is this one book that has sparked so much conspiracy theories that it could possibly drown out flat Earth if it still existed today. I don't know how many people are King James Version only is today. Oh, apart from our mate. I keep forgetting. Sorry, Sir Stephen L. Anderson. I'm sorry, Matt Powell. I forgot. The independent fundamental Baptist churches. Sorry, the satanic, the new independent fundamental Baptist churches, which are not related to oh God, Westboro Baptist, of course. Nothing to do with them. They are holier than every other church in the Bible Belt because they read only the King James and they actively burn all this Greek Hebrew nonsense.
For my ministry, or go to avpublications.com if this topic interests you about studying different Bible verses.
Yeah. And what did we learn from that? What did we actually learn from that? I did get one thing out of it, didn't I? Jesus would have read a scroll. I mean, if you go to the Wailing Wall today, you see them read. I just love art from an artistic point of view. Just these, wow. Anyway, so that's that. Now that we've heard that, the short version, we're going to go into a 10-part series because they're going to be broken down for the reasons, because they're going to be fun to make, not like these ones which are rushes. We're going to look at Les Garrett, the creator of scripture and song, only because he quotes verbatim Gail Riplinger's magnum opus, the New Age Bible versions, and if I grab it, my Wii U will fall to the ground, so I can't touch it. Stay tuned. So, episode 1 of Les Garrett coming up, but it's going to be slow. It's going to be slower because it's going to be more fun, and Nicola will be writing the music for it. So it may take a long time, and I've got to get used to it taking a long time. By the way, before I go, oh my god, seriously. Sorry, CJ. Sorry, dude. Before I go... Oh, crap. Before I go, the Elder Wand is here in all its glory. And it's got a little blue light. So I'm believing... Oh, that's a battery pack. So I'm going to get this set up for CJ. And he's got himself an Elder Wand. Wow, we're not going to get an invisibility cloak, because we've already got one. It's called a green screen. Thanks for watching. Expelliarmus. Avada Kedavra. Now you're all dead. I just killed all the audience. Oh my god, what have I done? Bye.